My sister told me that with her small wedding, my husband couldn't attend, but she invited her brother-in-law to the wedding of over 200 people to set us up. I hate controlling people, and I hate those who think they know better, even though they're actually idiots who know nothing at all. Unfortunately, my sister is the perfect combination of those two traits. Honestly, she's a little bitch, and I don't want to have anything to do with her ever again, especially after the stunt she pulled. It's not entirely her fault, though. I'm not saying that to take credit away from her, but so that others share the blame too. Our parents always treated her like the golden child because she's the youngest, and because they had a difficult pregnancy with her. Apparently, my parents need to give her special attention, otherwise she'll die of starvation from not getting all the love. They've always done it, and always given her everything she wanted. So it doesn't surprise me that she ended up being a hellish brat. And I know that, despite what she did, she'll get away with it. And I'll get my ears pulled because, as the oldest, I have to be the most mature. According to my parents, I just have to let things go and basically put up with the little princess's whims and fantasies. Well, guess what? Yesterday was the day they needed me to put up with it the most, and I didn't. Too bad for them. Yesterday was when I said enough with making excuses for her shitty behavior and gave them something they deserved. Enough with justifying the golden crib our parents gave her. And finally, enough with putting up with her spoiled attitude. She can go fry asparagus. That's my politest way of saying she can shove her own fist up her ass and twist it around. Tessa is 23, and she's this monster who got married yesterday. I wasn't part of the wedding party, not even one of her bridesmaids, and it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. She can be very controlling, and she and I don't see eye to eye on many things, so that avoided us clashing more than necessary. It's not entirely her fault because Tessa and I were never very close due to a 6-year age difference. When I was a teenager, she was a kid, and she was the typical annoying little sister who ran to Mom to tattle on everything and made sure I got in trouble while she whined and got away with everything. By the time she grew up, I had already moved out for college, so we never had the chance to bond as friends. Of course I was there to advise her and we'd go out and have fun, but we weren't friends as such, and that was fine with me. I had my life, and she had hers, so it never bothered me. I don't know how it was for her, because the way she's acted has completely thrown me off. I got married a year ago to a man I'm still madly in love with. People in general didn't support my decision much, especially Tessa. The problem was that my husband is 11 years older than me. It doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother him. But Tessa is the typical Gen Z who jumped on the bandwagon that he had groomed me and that our relationship wasn't authentic because of the age difference. This makes no sense at all, because when we met, I was already an adult, even 21. I tried to reason with her and explain that if she decided to pursue a career as a math teacher, she'd do absolutely terribly at it. But I told her and my parents that I met him when I was 26, so there was no way he could have done anything to me that I didn't want. I was a fully functioning adult with a developed frontal lobe when I met him, not some pimply teenager desperate for any older man who paid her attention. None of them were convinced. But when Mom and Dad met him, they took a liking to him. Tessa didn't. And when I realized she wasn't getting off the hate train toward my husband, we had a one-on-one talk where I didn't say nice things. I told her she had a right to her opinion because opinions are like assholes, and though hers was really ugly like her asshole, I wasn't going to waste my time trying so hard to make her see reason. If that was the path she wanted to take, good for her. However, my husband and I were serious, and we were getting married. And if she wanted to stay in contact with me and be cordial, she had to drop this issue and treat him well. He hadn't done anything to antagonize her in particular, so I didn't understand where all her rage and anguish was coming from. She knew I was serious, and there have only been a few times I've been that firm with her, so let's say I made myself understood. Tessa and my husband haven't spent much time together, but he knows she doesn't like him much. It doesn't bother him because to him, she is very young, both in age and maturity, and they have nothing in common. I was fine with there being distance, as long as they were respectful to each other. But I had no idea about the fantasies Tessa was into. If I had known, this would have ended differently. While Tessa was planning her wedding, she indirectly asked me not to get involved. I already anticipated that snub because I didn't let her do much at my wedding, so I saw it coming. It didn't bother me, so fine, less work for me and more enjoying as a regular guest. However, she told me she was having a very intimate wedding, which is why she didn't send me an invitation with a +1. At first I thought it was because she didn't like my husband and didn't want to invite him. But then she clarified that it was for everyone, not just me. That since it was small, she wanted to limit it to close friends and family and nothing more. With the benefit of hindsight, I should have checked with Mom and Dad at that moment, but at the same time, they would have told me the same version as my sister. When I arrived at the wedding, I had to fly from another city, and I saw the venue, saw people buzzing around like bees. It was so packed that I thought maybe I had the wrong hall and was at a concert, but I soon realized it was far from a private or intimate gathering. I think between 200 and 250 people attended that wedding. I went with Dad. Mom was busy trying to fix Tessa up, an impossible task unless you mean physically, and I asked him what was going on with this intimate little party. I told him my husband hadn't gotten an invitation because there was no room for him, and that when I asked Tessa, she had told me it was supposed to be a small event and she hadn't given +1 invitations to anyone. I told Dad he was my husband and should have been invited. He said he knew about her decision, but didn't tell me because he knew I'd react like this. He said that at the end of the day it was her wedding, and if she didn't want to invite my husband, she had every right not to. I bit my lip because what he said was true. He didn't have an entitlement to an invitation, and there was nothing I could do at that point. I wanted to leave then, but Dad said he didn't want me to make a scene, and that I could kiss my husband's ass any other day. Today was for Tessa. And boy was it going to be Tessa's day, only nobody had informed Tessa what kind of day she was going to have, let alone imagine it. Because when you get married, you imagine everything will be perfect, not that it will be completely ruined. But there I was, the vengeful sister, the John Wick whose dog they had killed, except in this case, they had left my husband uninvited. If she had told me she didn't want my husband to come, I would have said fine. It would have saved me a plane ticket, and I wouldn't have attended either. We would have avoided the drama. But I don't take a flight of over 2 hours and go home without drama. It would have been different if the flight was an hour and a half. When the ceremony ended and we sat down to dinner, I took Tessa by the arm and pulled her aside to ask her what the hell was going on. She acted confused, but when she understood what I was talking about, she laughed. She had the audacity to laugh about not inviting my husband to her wedding. And by this point I had realized that I was the only person who didn't get a +1 invitation. Literally everyone else had brought someone. I even thought I saw a distant cousin older than us bringing the neighbor. Maybe it's her partner, and I'd never seen him before, or maybe she just invited him to see if she could hook up with him after the wedding. A couple of people even came up to ask me where my husband was, and I had to tell the truth, that my sister doesn't like my husband, so she lied to me so I wouldn't bring him. I told them I was expecting an intimate dinner of 15 people, but here I was at practically a royal wedding. I was already humiliated and angry, and when I saw her laugh, I wanted to rip her hair out and drag her around the hall in front of her 200 guests. I got so close to her face that I could smell the double shrimp cocktail she had tried earlier, since although it was one per person, I ate for my husband to make it cost her more, and I asked her why the fuck my husband wasn't there. She said she had a surprise for me and that I had to promise not to get angry. I told her I wasn't going to make stupid promises and to tell me what the hell was going on because I was already angry, and it was the difference between taking the rest of the photos with all her teeth or not. I think by then it was obvious I wasn't in the mood for jokes and had no bandwidth to tolerate this much longer. That's when Tessa revealed her brilliant plan. Tessa's husband, Sam, who is her same age, has an older brother, Ren, who is 29. Tessa said she hadn't given me an extra invitation because she wanted to set me up with Ren. If I had been a little less angry, I would have laughed in her face and thought it was a joke because of how ridiculous it sounded. But she was serious, and with how empty-headed she is, I knew she was serious. It's not the first ridiculous idea she's had in life. Once when she was little, maybe 12, she thought that if she left the refrigerator open at home and closed the windows, we'd have Christmas in July. The fridge motor burned out, and it cost my parents $500 to buy another one to replace it. I asked her if they were serving drugs at the wedding, because so far the waiter hadn't come by my table with that cocktail of madness and desperation she had taken. And she had the nerve to flip me off and say I was too uptight. I told her I was happily married, and that even in my wildest dreams I hadn't thought about being with anyone else. But if that was okay with her, it wasn't my place to judge. It was her brand new husband's place. I asked her what made her think I wanted to be with Ren, and she said it wasn't anything I had done. She said Ren had a huge crush on me from the beginning of time. She didn't believe in cheating, but she was just trying to help us both. Him because he really loved me, and me so I could be with a guy my age. He had asked her if I was available, and she told him that although I was married, she was flexible about these things. So apparently I had a chance, according to the version my sister had given the guy I'd probably seen a couple of times. She said he didn't care that I was married. Funny that he didn't bother to ask if it was okay with me, because obviously it wasn't. I asked her how the hell a man would be with me as a cheater who sleeps with him right after his sister's wedding. This not only degraded and humiliated my husband, but me too. Her response was that my husband was kind of ugly and a shitty old man, so it was actually good for me if I got a newer model. And that sooner or later I'd get bored of him. That my infatuation would end as soon as I freed myself from his grooming spell, and then I'd see reality. So she thought the best thing was to give me a head start with a good guy, according to her, meaning Ren. She believed that since he was my age, we'd get along better, and he was already crazy about me, so I wouldn't even have to try. He'd accept me as I am, and I could be his wife and enjoy my life, which, according to her, would be the complete opposite of the life I share with my husband. And plus, that way she and I could be closer and sisters-in-law to brothers. Her exact words. I still remember them because I have an elephant's memory. Though elephants must cheat too, because I had my phone recording while my sister wouldn't stop sounding like the best damn wife in the universe. Imagine marrying someone who thinks breaking your wedding vows is a minor issue. Obviously, this discussion wasn't in whispers, because at least for me, I didn't care about keeping it secret. I wasn't the one doing something wrong, so it didn't matter if the rest of the people found out or not. Well, actually I did want them to find out. My father, her husband, and even Ren came over to see what was happening. And as expected, she started crying crocodile tears wedding edition, because according to her, I was being horrible on her special day. According to her, I was attacking her over some nonsense, and it was very bad of me to do it right on the day she was getting married. That I couldn't stand to see her happy for even a second, and I had to do this because I was just that competitive and bitter. When I thought she had nothing left to say, I asked if she was done. Everyone was looking at me with hate, but we had her version, and now we were going to have the other version. I didn't say anything. I just played the audio, and everyone heard the nonsense she was saying. Aside from my parents, who were still angry with me for recording their little princess being not so princessy, the rest weren't happy with my sister. And among them was her husband. Rin was also a bit overwhelmed by everything, so I think he wasn't aware of all her nonsense. But I didn't care. I had already done what I came to do, and it was time to take my broom and courage to fly back home. Yes, I can be a witch too with those who deserve it. Since I landed home and taken my broom to the broom wash, I've been able to sit quietly. I've received some messages from people saying the wedding ended abruptly with the music cut and everything after my little sister's husband asked everyone to leave. Strangely, I haven't received messages from my parents or my sister. At this point, I think someone cut off their hands or something similar. I don't regret anything. I've even been sitting here for a couple of hours while writing, trying an evil laugh and everything. Let my parents and sister rot. Nobody pulls that crap with me and has a happy wedding to tell about. Update 1. Guess who I got a message from this morning? No, my parents and sister aren't important here. I'm talking about Run, the guy who supposedly had a huge crush on me and wanted to steal me at my sister's wedding. Since the wedding, I had a hunch that what Tessa told me wasn't true. The whole reason for not inviting my husband and the Ren thing sounded too convoluted to be real. Especially because Ren had seemed like a sensible guy the few times I talked to him. If he had developed feelings, I think I would have noticed. That's why I agreed to talk to him via Instagram messages. Also partly because I wanted to know the gossip about what happened at the wedding. Witches don't just make potions, eat fattened children in our forest house, and have a cat named Salem. We also love gossip, and we have 5 or 6 subscriptions to Hollywood gossip magazines. And let me spoil that Rin cleared up so many things that now I can see Tessa as the little bitch she is. Before she was a slut, now she's a bitch. I don't know what comes next, but it'll be bad. According to him, Tessa told him I was in an abusive marriage and didn't realize it because I had low self-esteem. She said he seemed like a good match for me and that I had indicated I liked him, and she begged him to hit on me at the wedding and would make sure I arrived without my husband. Then she said some things about my husband that made my blood boil. It wasn't his fault. He was just repeating what he was told, and I couldn't blame him. Here's the funny part. He doesn't feel anything for me. Once he just talked to his brother and confessed that he thought I was attractive. But it wasn't an I'm madly in love with her. It was just, I think Ope is hot. He said his brother probably told her and she blew it all out of proportion. Since on the wedding day, before everyone arrived and while he was helping his brother, she came to tell him all those things about me, which seemed a bit strange to him. He thought she was joking until he heard her voice recorded. Here comes the part about what happened at the wedding after I left. My sister and her husband started arguing. They weren't doing it quietly, and although my sister asked the person controlling the music to turn it up louder every now and then it would drop, and you could hear quite clearly several meters away. My brother-in-law clearly wanted to know what she was trying to do, because he knows I'm married, and it seemed very wrong to him to start their marriage by trying to ruin another. It's bad luck, everyone knows, but it's also a huge red flag. My parents would approach to try to calm her husband, mainly because they saw my sister crying while he got angrier with her. But in the end, both would tell them to stay away because they were discussing private things, which weren't so private because Run was hearing everything, as was half the party. Rin swears he saw one of my uncles adjusting his hearing aid to listen better. He might also have been the one preventing the music from being turned down. Finally, Sam got fed up, told the guy to cut the music, and informed everyone that the wedding was over and to go home. My parents said no, that they were still celebrating, but their son-in-law had nothing left to celebrate. My parents had paid for a big part of the wedding as the bride's parents, so they weren't happy that halfway through the celebration, with everything paid for, it was being suspended. It's not like they were going to get the money back. Finally, Sam left with his parents and has been sleeping at their house since then, and Rin messaged me because he thought I'd like to clear things up between us. He said I might not believe him, but during the argument they talked about it, and his brother and other people at the wedding could confirm it. Other semi-interesting things that happened before everyone left is that my brother-in-law told my sister that she and her parents shouldn't bother me because if he hears they've been causing me more problems, he'd probably request annulment without thinking twice. That means not everything is ruined for them, but I have to thank that I'm not being bombarded now with messages and calls from my family. Rin thinks, knowing his brother well, that annulment isn't an option, it's the only path. But he's so angry that my sister used the wedding for this that he wants to make up for it somehow. Sam literally left the wedding shortly after the argument ended, while my sister screamed, crying for him not to leave her as our parents consoled her. I regret leaving early, because it sounds like it was a good wedding after all. But you know how Broome traffic is in the afternoon. Better not return during rush hour. Update 2. I've started receiving messages and calls from my parents and my sister because apparently Sam is requesting annulment of the wedding and won't be married to her for one more second. I've lost my protection, but it doesn't matter much because I've blocked them all. Mom and Dad were furious from what I managed to read in some of their messages. But it's fine. You'd do it too if you had paid for a 200-guest wedding that only served to humiliate my sister. If I had known the wedding was about that, I probably would have contributed a few hundred. You can't get this in a Broadway show. Tessa called me, presumably crying, but I'll never know because I didn't answer and don't plan to. Sam sent me a short message saying he was sorry for what my sister did, and if I was open to talking to him, to call. My husband told me to do it immediately. We need to know what's going on. I haven't talked much about him in my previous posts, about how he felt about this. I've preferred not to because he felt bad about missing all the drama. Of course, if he had been invited, we wouldn't have had drama, but he's the type who would have been in the front row, trying to listen along with the uncle with the hearing aid. I called him and put him on speaker because my husband wanted to hear what he said. So when Sam started apologizing again, my husband told him to cut it out. Nobody's offended with you. Just tell us what we want to know already. So Sam laughed and started spilling everything. Basically, we got a similar version to Ren's about their argument at the wedding, just with more detail. The important thing you need to know is that he called my sister the Chinese flag for how red she was. He also said putting his brother in the middle of all this, playing with me, and making their wedding a place for her whims was way out of line. He also confirmed what Ren said about me, that he thought I was pretty. Nothing offensive, but when he said something to my sister similar to, my brother said your sister is cute, she took it as if he was in love or got jealous about the whole thing. There are people who said Ren was wrong for saying I was cute or whatever. But saying someone is cute doesn't mean you want to marry them and have kids with them. We're not in second grade where people sing that you sit on a swing holding hands because you think someone is cute. Sam finally requested the annulment, and my sister is exploding like a volcano. He had also told her not to bother me while he thought about it. In quotes, though, for him, the day he left the wedding he had already decided to annul it completely. According to my ex-brother-in-law, my parents are also very angry with him and want him to return all the money they put into the wedding. They spent over $60,000 and want it back. Sam has responded with ask your daughter or get a lawyer because you won't get a cent from me, not even if you turn me upside down. My husband told him to stand firm and not to hesitate to contact us if he needs help dealing with my parents. I think Sam has it all under control, but it's good to help people down on their luck. All of them, except my sister and my parents. Update 3. Sam has officially filed for annulment of the marriage. They weren't married long enough, so that's a much simpler option for him to end the marriage. Not so much for my sister, who would like to stay married, but what can you do? Sam asked us for the audio I recorded at the wedding, and we sent it to him gladly. If in the end my sister wants to play stupid games, we're going to turn her stupidities against her. There are people upset with me because I'm gleeful that my sister is getting divorced or annulled. And you can bet on it. If she had dropped all this grooming nonsense and not invited me to her wedding, we all would have avoided the drama. I don't understand how this is my fault if I just defended myself. Sooner or later her husband would have ended up in this same situation, probably. My parents have finally taken the lawsuit path to recover the wedding money with little legal basis and little chance of winning. It's not Sam's fault that his wife used the wedding for whatever she was trying. His only concern that day was getting married, not seeing who I sleep with. He could have followed my example, getting married, and making sure that day was just about the couple. I wasn't keeping track at my wedding if a friend was hooking up with someone at my wedding. It was the last thing I'd care about. There would be time for gossip another day, but the day was for the two of us. Nobody expects the lawsuit to succeed, not even my parents. But they must be thinking this will scare Sam, and he'll come to a settlement, paying a portion of the wedding. From what he said, he's tired of that family, though he doesn't even count me in it, and he won't spend a cent. He'd rather spend money on lawyers than let them see any. My husband thinks that's the true combative spirit, and he's proud. He says he would have been a good brother-in-law, though not good enough to put up with my sister. I guess we just have to wait and see what happens with the lawsuit and bring an update when that happens. I still don't think this is my last update. Update 4. I know how much you want a lawsuit update, but I have something juicier. What kind of OP would I be if I came with a boring update about a case that wouldn't amount to much? Not a very good one, I'll tell you. The lawsuit was finally withdrawn because my sister convinced my parents to drop it to try to fix things with Sam. Sam thanked her, but as for the annulment, he couldn't wait for it to be granted. My sister still had a little hope that by doing this for him, it would bring them closer. But when I said Sam was fed up with the family, he really was. I can't blame him. I'm fed up with that family too. That covers the lawsuit topic. And as you see, there's not much to say. The important part is what comes next. The annulment was 2 or 3 weeks ago. You'll have to take my word for it, though math isn't my thing. I have a higher level than my sister. We already know how much she likes adding and subtracting, but not by much. But yes, it's a fresh annulment, you could say. As fresh as my sister, who didn't even wait for the ink to dry before flirting with Run, her ex-husband's brother. She sent him some flirty messages, but the one that would sum it all up was, "If you thought my sister was pretty, I think the younger version might appeal to you more." And Run replied, "Yes, but not the crazier one." Sam laughed, Run laughed, my husband laughed, and I laughed. My sister probably didn't laugh, because after that message she told him to rot and blocked him. My parents must be happy. A wasted wedding avoided. My relationship with my parents and my sister is null right now. That's what happens when you don't live in the same city and have their phones blocked. They still haven't tried using other numbers or anything, which feels sad because that was the level of importance I had for them, but at the same time, because it avoids the drama. The one who isn't happy is my husband, who says he would have liked to answer some of the calls and make some jokes. I told him that when his family goes crazy, which luckily it doesn't, we can make all the jokes he wants. He thought that was fine, and said he's waiting for his family to acquire some entitlement. That was until I sent him to educate himself a bit on Reddit, seeing what some entitled families do. After 3 hours, he came back, aged like 5 years, and apologized for wishing something so stupid. I think Reddit should be taught as a class in schools. It would save many people victims of entitled families.